All right, it was a positive day in the West African markets yesterday. Let's wrap up those markets for you. Starting with the BRVM 10, the BRVM 10 index closed trading at 237 points. That was up 1.2% yesterday. And while the all-share index, the BRVM composite, also gained 0.8% to close at 211 points. So a very strong day in the BRVM market. Total value traded on the day was 107 million CFA francs, the currency trading at 504 to the US dollar at the close of trade yesterday, putting its year-to-date change at -1%. And moving on to Ghana, the Ghana GSC Composite Index closed at 1,877 points. That was up moderately, up just 0.16%, keeping its year-to-date change at about 56%. And on the other hand, the GSC Financial Stock Index closed at 1,585 points, marginally up by 0.1%. Year-to-date, that index is up 53%. And on to the currency front, the Ghana cedi showing some weakness recently, strengthening slightly yesterday, closing at 2.02 to the US dollar. So it's now down -6% for the year. And moving on to Nigeria, the NSE All-Share Index continued the recent gains. It was up about 1%. The NSE All-Share Index closing at 36,468 points on the day, and so it's now up almost 30% for the year. And if we check out some of the gainers, we saw quite a few gaining 10% on the day, the likes of Judas Berger, African Prudential, and John Holt, while the likes of NACO, Transcorp is making a major rebound these days. It was up 10% the day before, and yesterday was up just under 10%. And let's move on to the fixed income market. Nigerian Central Bank offered 60 billion Naira OMO Treasury bills, but only sold 14.4 billion as it resumed open market operations yesterday to mop up excess liquidity in the interbank market. And to discuss the latest developments in Nigeria's fixed income market, joining us is Yetunde Ogunremi, an analyst at Stanbic IBTC Global Markets. Yetunde, thank you for joining us.
Good morning, Wale. Thank you for having me.
Good morning. So I think maybe we should start with that OMO transaction. The central bank coming back to the OMO market. Well, put it this way, investors coming back to the open market, because we do know that they have tried to sell OMO bills recently. Can you just talk us through the level of success yesterday? Because I did note that only about 14 billion was sold.
Okay. Yesterday, the CBN attempted to roll over the maturing OMO bills. About 113 billion that had been previously issued for various tenors matured into the market. They offered 80 billion of those. Subscription was 74 billion, but they only sold 14. It was interesting that the range of bids was 13 to 13.9%. So the CBN pretty much cut off at 13.2%, showing that they were not willing to take interest rates that high at that point in time. It's yet to be seen whether they'll come back to the market today, but with market being over 200 billion up, I'm sure they'll be a bit anxious to mop up that excess liquidity.
All right, so a lot of liquidity out there, and I wanted to get your thoughts on whether or not they may have to raise those rates to about 13.5, maybe even 14. Do you think they may get that aggressive?
Not certain at this time. And the other thing the CBN is conscious of is the standing deposit facility with them. Because if you're able to access funds from the CBN window at 14%, chances are they won't want to give you those bills so that you're not able to arbitrage the CBN. So it waits to be seen. They've been slow about it because the last time they offered an OMO bill was on the 10th of June and it didn't sell much then either. Right. So we'll see how aggressive they would be. And if market players are interested, chances are they will just go at the stop rate of yesterday. Right. And taking as much as they can.
Right. And just to be clear, foreign investors cannot participate in the OMO market. Is that correct?
That's correct.
All right. Okay, let's move on to what they are doing, because I guess the news these days is that they're no longer buying as much as they used to. And in fact, I think it's more of a net sell-off and a net withdrawal from the system. That is putting some pressure on the Naira. Talk us through the activities of foreign investors right now.
Look, I think it's actually a bit mixed. On the bond side, we actually saw some interest from foreign investors, and we saw the April 17, June 19, and January 22 bonds actually losing 20 basis points yesterday. They seem to be interested in the early 14s when those bonds cross that point. They show some interest, but nothing major. And even local market players are not doing anything major in the market. But we've seen some interest on the long end of the curve. The treasury bills, there's been some sell-off. You then see some short shortening duration, the buying in the middle of the curve. So it's a bit mixed. It seems market is sort of waiting to see what is going to happen at the MPC meeting in July before they decide on what long-term positions they're going to take.
Right. But if those yields were to move up to about 14.5, do you think we'll see foreign investors come back, or do you think the factors elsewhere are more significant these days, and the expectations of higher interest rates in the U.S. may just temper the risk appetite of foreign investors?
Look, I think we would see them come back, especially if they get the sense that the CBN is going to defend the currency and there will be any sharp depreciation of the currency. We could see foreign investors coming back at yields of 15% and 16%, but probably not as aggressive as they would have because of, like you said, what is going on in the global environment.
Back to that OMO transaction, I want to get your thoughts yesterday on how this has impacted the secondary market for T-bills.
Okay. Right now, the OMO bill that they offered, 231 days, is not trading. So what has happened is the bills around that level have sort of gone up slightly, and market players have taken advantage of shortening some positions and then going long on some positions just to take advantage of that disparity in the curve. So it waits to see if the CBN offers more and that OMO bill gets some more depth, and then we'll see if those bills will start to trade, and then that would define the new market levels around that end of the curve.
Right. So if we look across the curve right now, what would be your advice to investors looking to buy Nigeria's fixed income right now? How should they position across the curve?
Okay, I would say the treasury bill market gives you the great opportunity with yields at 15% for a duration of 9 months and 10 months. It's absolutely fantastic to invest in treasury bills at those levels. So I would say foreign investors should come in at the current level of interest rates.
Okay, if we look a bit further ahead, what are your expectations for that MPC meeting that you mentioned? We've seen very, very positive moderation in inflation. It's been under 10% for a couple of months now. So it really won't be a case of tightening to bring down inflation. I guess any tightening we may see will be linked to the exchange rate. But what are your expectations?
Okay, we have heard from the central bank that they are not quite pressured about the currency. With the volume of reserves right now, we are still able to support 12 months of import cover. So there's some confidence as the central bank that they are able to sustain the pressure on the exchange rate. So if that happens, we might not see drastic moves at the primary auction. But what they are also worried about is government spending pre-election. So it's a bit of a mixed bag. So the July MPC is one that we really can't predict with so much accuracy. But then what we think we would see is there will be no policy change in terms of the FX. That means the band is likely to remain the same, NOP is likely to remain the same. Right. So if anything at all, the OMO activities will continue to go on, and there are some talks about a possibility of a move in cash reserve and all that, but it's still early days, and the pressure on the exchange doesn't seem that significant amidst the volume of reserves that the country holds.
Well, I think some may argue, because recently we've seen it move to 161. It was about 157, 158 just a couple of weeks ago. And we've seen some volatility. So I think some may suggest that the central bank or the MPC may begin to think twice about further tightening to keep the Naira stable. And of course, it's all about the signal. It's about the signal that they send to foreign investors, because if they, like you mentioned, if foreign investors get the sense the Naira is going to be stable, they will come back. And if they get the sense that it's going to weaken, then of course, all bets are off, and we could see them pull out in a very big way.
Yes, I agree with you. Wale. But what we've also seen is the CBN has been able to raise the FX supply at the WDAS auction. The CBN has been participating in the interbank market, albeit the impact is not significant because of the way, the manner in which they've gone about it. Because when we were speaking to Dario yesterday, and he mentioned in terms of when the timing at which the CBN comes into the market, they come towards the close of market. So the impact of the liquidity that they supply is not fully felt. So if the CBN were to change the methodology in terms of how much they intervene in the market, then we could see more traction with their intervention. But right now, because of the volume of reserves that we have, like I said earlier, I don't see that immediate pressure with the CBN to do something drastic on the FX side and to also do something drastic on the interest rate side. But if anything is going to move at all, it's obvious that the FX will be maintained and the interest rate will be increased to support.
Right.